The search for the definition of art seems to be quite easy. I mean, you go to the gallery and you get some art, or you buy some books and you have art before you. But when you think about it, it is not as easy as it seems, because we've had quite a number of really accomplished individuals asking these questions, and so far, it seems we haven't gotten any definitive answer. There is still no one answer that we can turn to. In order to trace the first answers to that question, we have to go back to the ancient Greeks. There, Plato and Aristotle tried to answer that question. Firstly, Plato says that art is something flawed. Art is something that should be banned from his ideal republic, and it is because art is mimetic. That is, art only imitates the real world, and that makes it just a reflection of a reflection, because the real world in turn is just a reflection of the world of ideas that Plato postulates. You may remember that Plato was an idealist. That is, he believed that there is this great world of ideas, of universal ideas, that is over our world of real physical things, and that these ideas are underlying in every real physical manifestation of the thing on earth. Aristotle agreed with Plato that art is inherently mimetic. However, he claimed that it's a good thing. He claimed that if it is so, it's possible for us to know more about the real world thanks to this imitation, and in turn maybe get to know a bit more about these universal ideas that we want to reach. So Aristotle claimed that art is something that can really help philosophy and help us get to the universal ideas. Plato did not agree with that. He claimed that art is something that works in opposite direction of philosophy. He kind of saw it as the enemy, as something that hinders this philosophical quest to reach the world of ideas. This idea that art is just a representation of the real world was quite long lasting and encompassed in its lifetime the works of such masters as Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo, the masters of representation. But it's precisely because these masters appeared that the idea came to be criticized. You see, at some point, people realized that representation can only go thus far. You can only make, I know, a daffodil as beautiful as it is in reality. So if art is only a representation, it has really clear limits, and people did not agree with that. And thus, movements such as Romantic poetry appeared, or Impressionism and Expressionism. All these had the same goal in mind. They wanted to transcend this idea of representation, and they wanted to add something more to art. They wanted to influence emotions. This objective reality that was on top of the representational art became not as important as emotions, as this inner work of art on a human being. Artists realized that maybe it's the subjective feeling and subjective experience that people are looking for when they come to experience art. Just take a look at one of the most important and most famous romantic poems. It's, of course, The Daffodils, or I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud by William Wordsworth. And take a look at the last two lines. It's "and then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils." And if you consider these lines, it may as well be a manifesto of the new emotional art. It's because reason is not in focus anymore. Now it's time for your emotions. It's time for you to express them, but also experience them. However, this shift for a much more subjective definition was not well liked by many people. They said that if it is so, if art is only about emotion, that we get nothing out of this definition, because really everything can invoke some emotions in us. So how is it that still some things are considered art and some are not? The question became even more important with the onset of many, let's say, different and difficult to understand and pinpoint movements in art, such as surrealism. So, some people said that if we cannot really distinguish art on the basis of this emotional criterion, we have to consider some formal constraints. So maybe let's say that poems are art only if they have some certain meter or number of stanzas, or only if they are rhymed on, or only if they are written in blank verse. The same was true for fiction. For example, maybe the plot is needed, maybe some sort of um, character development. Many ideas appeared. Uh, for art, of course, you could have ideas such as maybe you need some specific kind of canvas, maybe specific type of brush stroke is necessary for painting to be considered art or not. Overall, some people claim that you need some technical aspect of the work, the thing, for it to be considered art. But overall, it seems that the matter remains completely subjective. Whether you think that only painting is art, or maybe everything that humans create is art, or maybe that only poems which have 11 verses are art, it's possible that everyone is at the same time right and wrong, because, as I said, the matter seems to be completely subjective. The definition of art seems to change from person to person. So maybe exactly the lack of a concrete definition that we can pinpoint and that we can utilize for every other thing to categorize it as art or not, maybe this is the correct definition of art. To wrap it up, I would like to leave you with one thing to think about, and that is the first work of art. You see, what if we consider the first representation created by a human being to be a work of art? If it is so, we have to go back around 100,000 years, and then in some cave probably, for the first time, a human being draws something on a wall, be it a bull or a zebra or just some animal. For the first time ever, human being represents something which normally was just in nature. Imagine how much creativity and imagination it had to require for this first act. And with that in mind, I would like to leave you. Thank you for watching, and if you did enjoy it, please consider subscribing. See you next time.